What's up, developers? Welcome to Talking AI Hot Take Edition, where we break down the AI news that actually affects your code, your wallet, and your weekend plans. So Apple just proved they're more desperate than we thought. Executives are reportedly having serious internal discussions about dropping $14 billion to acquire Perplexity AI. That's right. The same Apple that spent years telling us they weren't a tech company but a lifestyle brand is now so desperate to catch up in AI that they're considering their largest acquisition ever, and it's not even close. For context, their previous largest deal was buying Beats for $3 billion back in 2014. So let me paint you a picture of how we got here, because this is basically like watching your neighbor who's been insisting they don't need to learn how to cook, suddenly offering to buy Gordon Ramsay's entire restaurant chain because they're starving. Apple's head of mergers and acquisitions, Adrian Perica, has been weighing this idea with Services chief Eddie Q and top AI decision makers, according to Bloomberg. But here's the kicker. These discussions are at an early stage and may not lead to an offer. Translation: Apple is so panicked about their AI situation that they're having $14 billion panic meetings, but they haven't even called Perplexity yet. It's like Tesla desperately wanting to buy Ford's entire electric vehicle division while still insisting they're the innovation leaders. The cognitive dissonance is actually impressive. Now, before you panic about Apple suddenly becoming competent at AI overnight, let me explain why this acquisition screams desperation rather than strategy. Apple announced in March that they're delaying Siri's promised AI improvements until 2026, features that were supposed to launch this spring. But wait, it gets worse. Apple's own Siri chief called these delays ugly and embarrassing in an all-hands meeting and reportedly said a decision to publicly promote the technology before it was ready made matters worse. Here's what this actually means for developers. The company that marketed the iPhone 16 as built from the ground up for Apple Intelligence still can't deliver the core features that justify that marketing claim. Some within Apple's AI division believe that work on the features could be scrapped altogether, and that Apple may have to rebuild the functions from scratch. Let me repeat that. Apple might have to throw away everything and start over. Their internal AI team has literally earned the nickname AIMLess among other Apple engineers. Yeah, I wish I was making this up. Plot twist. This isn't just about Apple's wounded pride. Apple plans to integrate AI-driven search capabilities into its Safari browser, potentially moving away from its long-standing partnership with Google. Why? Because the US Department of Justice wants to ban Google from paying companies to make it their default search engine, which currently brings Apple about $20 billion annually. So Apple is facing a double crisis. Their own AI is broken, and their $20 billion search deal might disappear. Buying Perplexity suddenly looks less like innovation and more like buying a life raft while your ship is sinking. For developers, this means the search landscape on iOS could change dramatically. That Google search integration you've been relying on, it might get replaced with whatever Perplexity can cobble together under Apple's privacy-first constraints. But here's where it gets really interesting. Bloomberg also reported that Meta tried to buy Perplexity earlier this year before moving on to their $14.8 billion investment in Scale AI instead. Yeah, let's leave that topic for another day. And Samsung is reportedly close to finalizing its own major partnership with Perplexity, which could make any exclusive Apple deal more complicated. Imagine if 3 different companies were all fighting to hire the same freelance developer to fix their broken authentication system. That's essentially what's happening here, except the freelancer is valued at $14 billion and everyone's authentication system is on fire. Translation for developers: if this acquisition happens, expect some serious changes to how search and AI work across Apple's ecosystem. The iPhone maker reportedly plans to integrate AI-driven search capabilities, such as Perplexity AI, into its Safari browser. For the open source crowd, this could actually be interesting. Craig Federighi has reportedly already changed one big AI policy, giving the green light to use open source third-party models instead of building everything internally. Apple admitting they need outside help, that's character development. But let's be realistic about what you're getting. Perplexity handled 780 million queries in May, which sounds impressive until you realize Google processes 5 trillion searches per year. You're basically trading a Ferrari for a really nice bicycle. Here's what nobody's talking about: integration challenges. Perplexity runs on cloud infrastructure and external APIs. Apple runs everything through their own silicon and obsesses over privacy. Apple's struggles in AI seem partly tied to the company's militant stance on user privacy, but just as significant is poor leadership and execution problems. This is like buying a Windows-based AI startup and trying to run it natively on macOS while also making sure it never connects to the internet. Good luck with that integration, Apple. Your API costs probably aren't going down anytime soon, by the way, especially if Apple starts routing everything through their own infrastructure to maintain their privacy theater. Honestly, this deal makes perfect sense if you understand it for what it really is. Apple admitting they can't build competitive AI internally, so they're trying to buy their way out of irrelevance. Perplexity is valued at $14 billion, and if Apple were to offer the same amount, it would be the most expensive deal in its history. For a company that's been claiming they're taking a more deliberate approach to AI, dropping $14 billion on a search startup feels pretty undeliberate. But here's the thing, it might actually work. Not because the technology is revolutionary, but because Apple desperately needs AI talent and a working product they can ship. The idea is to develop an AI search engine powered by Perplexity and to integrate Perplexity's technology into Siri. The real question is, can Apple integrate Perplexity without destroying everything that makes it useful? Their track record with acquisitions suggests maybe not. If this deal goes through, expect to see Perplexity features start showing up in Safari and eventually Siri, probably sometime in late 2025 or early 2026. Apple has set an internal release target of spring 2026 for its delayed upgrade of Siri, so the timing actually works. For developers building search-dependent apps, this could be either a massive opportunity or a complete nightmare, depending on how well Apple handles the integration. Given their recent track record with AI promises, I'd recommend having backup plans. The broader industry impact? This could force Google to actually compete on search quality rather than just paying for default placement, which honestly might be the best outcome for all of us. That's the TLDR on Apple's potential $14 billion panic purchase of Perplexity. The company that gave us Think Different is now thinking Think Desperately, and honestly, it might be exactly what they need. If this saved you from reading 47 blog posts about Apple's AI crisis and potential acquisitions, hit subscribe. And if you're building anything that depends on search functionality in iOS apps, drop a comment. Would love to hear how you're preparing for the inevitable chaos. Remember, this is still just internal discussions at Apple, so Perplexity might end up with Samsung instead. But either way, the AI search wars are just getting started, and your weekend debugging sessions are about to get a lot more interesting.